We're back. This is Elliot Serrano and Jose Melendez coming to you from Dreamland Comics in Schaumburg, Illinois. Thank you for joining us here on CCW TV, the Comic Culture Warrior video channel. Inside Man, thank you so much for the for the shirt.
I was going to give him credit at the very end of this video, but since you spoiled it, all right.
And no one ever sends me crap. Jose gets all the cool stuff.
Well, you get to go to San Diego and hang out with John Layman.
I had to pay for it myself, though. We are now at the part that we call Last Rants, and Last Rants is when Jose and I talk about something that kind of pissed us off. And today we've got something that kind of pissed us off.
Of course it did. How is this ever going to sit well with me?
I don't know. Give me one moment in time. Amazing Spider-Man number 638. The O.M.I.T. thing. You know, they always got to come up with some clever acronym or whatever.
The sequel to One More Day.
OMD. Written by Joe Quesada with artwork by
Joe Quesada and
Paulo Rivera.
Yes.
Paulo Rivera.
And Jim Shooter did some writing in here, and Dave Michelini did some scripting, and Paul Ryan did some penciling, and Vince Coletta did some inking. Rick Parker did some lettering. Bob Sharon did some coloring. Jim Salicrop did some editing. And if you all think that those names sound very, very familiar, well, they should be, because this book is half of the interior work in this is half of the interior work from the Amazing Spider-Man annual where he gets married.
Yeah.
The actual pages, almost unedited, untouched, not relettered, not rescripted, not recolored, just the actual fucking pages. So now, instead of Marvel jamming you in the ass with wiki padding at the end of your books, you get them in the books.
It's not even like as cleverly done as the Deadpool, the Forrest Gump Deadpool that they did a while back. They take the actual pages from the Amazing Spider-Man annual and they just fit it in, and they come up with some other artwork around it.
I mean, the Paulo Rivera artwork in here, the Paulo is good. I like it, but it just doesn't
point
fit.
out some of the Paulo Rivera art pages.
He did all the stuff within the annual, like this stuff. Okay. That's all new stuff that Mephisto is fucking with.
Yeah.
So these are all his pages here. I mean, you can tell. I mean, it's a stark contrast between the coloring. So what he's doing is he's showing the unseen stuff from that annual, which is why they don't get married.
And there is a stark contrast, because when you go between the Paul Ryan pencils and the Paulo Rivera pencils and the coloring and all that.
And then Joe Quesada used to be a good artist.
Well, his work has evolved. I mean, he does take on a much more cartoony type.
And he actually draws himself as Peter Parker in this panel. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it looks kind of like him. Yeah.
Kind of. Peter Parker looks completely different in that panel.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no consistency in this work. And don't get me wrong, I think Joe Quesada is a great artist. I think he used to be a great artist. This is just not... This should never have seen print, this kind of art. Yeah, I know he's busy, but if he's too busy running the company, don't fucking write this story.
He said himself that he didn't have the time to do it. Yeah,
then have somebody else draw it.
Yeah.
Like, all right, go on.
Okay,
that's going to be a whole other rant.
Really,
right
the whole story opens where you find out what were those words that Mary Jane said to Mephisto.
Oh, by the way,
at the end of One More Day.
These two pages. So you have a blank page here with just text, and then this is a reprint of the panel from One More Day. Right. So there's two pages right there that Joe Quesada did not really draw, but he's credited with drawing.
So you see, the whole thing where, but you finally hear what Mary Jane told Mephisto. Which, I'm sorry, Mary Jane is naive beyond words if she really thinks that Mephisto's going to keep to his word. And then you flash back into the world of the present. I'm gonna say this, and maybe this is just me, and I'm gonna tell you why I've really had a hard time dealing with Spider-Man since One More Day. When I read this, I have the same feeling that I'm sure a lot of Star Trek fans had after seeing the new Star Trek movie, that that's not your Captain Kirk. It's not the same Captain Kirk. It's an alternate reality Captain Kirk. And as much as they want to push it as you were seeing again, Star Trek Year One, you're really not seeing that. You're seeing an alternate reality. Just like this, although what they've done with Peter Parker is they've taken an alternate reality of Peter Parker and they've kind of shoved him into the 616 reality. And that just really makes for a very disconcerting kind of feel, you know? I mean, it just doesn't feel right. So when I read this, ever since One More Day, this just does not feel like Peter Parker. It doesn't feel like it. And God bless it, I don't understand why they had to go through the whole thing. I really don't. I don't get it at all.
Right, yeah. So that's besides the other problems that I just pointed out, I have some other big problems. The first big problem is that this book, it's been 2 years, all right? You finally got to a place where the Spidey fans are buying Spidey, and One More Day is in the distant past. Why bring this up now? Why?
Because it's a story that everybody wants to hear.
No one wants to hear this story. Everyone's fine. Everyone accepted it. This, to me, they could have gone without ever explaining it. I mean, I seriously think... No.
I disagree.
No, I don't, because I've talked to people who have said, like, why did he even bother? Just, we got it, it sucked, we got Brand New Day, just let it lie. Why come back and throw...
This is a story that you should have told a long time ago, not now.
Right, we're 2 years after everyone's kind of already forgotten about it and have accepted it, but now here's the thing. Brings me to another big thing that I hate. This is what Joe Quesada actually thinks about Peter Parker and the fucking marriage. We all know that Joe Quesada hated the marriage. That's why he broke them up. In this issue, when you read the original pages, it's the original writing, it's the original lettering, it's the original story, but it's so out of context because Joe Quesada is forcing you, it is forcing those pages. It is forcing the reader to look at them in a completely different way that they were never meant to. So you're really cheating. I mean, I hate to say it, but he's just fucking force-feeding this bullshit down people's throats. Because that's how he feels. So he's going to make it a mockery. This is a mockery. It truly is. And we've talked about Bendis being a mockery. This is a mockery of Spider-Man in old Spider-Man stories. And everyone's going to say, well, you know, they weren't supposed to get married anyway, but Jim Shooter decided they were going to. Well, guess what? It fucking happened. Deal with it. It happened. Sorry. And if you're like, well, then you shouldn't be complaining because this is happening now too. But it shouldn't be happening. Right. Just because the editor-in-chief has a problem with something, he had a problem with mutants, no more mutants. We've talked about this ad nauseum about how personal politics for Joe Quesada, he throws him into the comics and changes everything because that's the way he thinks it should be.
Right.
You know, there's no...
Characters can't smoke, but it's okay if... A villain can't smoke, but it's okay if they throw a baby out a window.
Yeah, or rip women's heads off every other comic. That's perfectly fine. But, and then, you get Harry... And Peter Parker, in these original pages, is reflecting about how much he still loves Gwen Stacy. I mean, this is all stuff that happened without the resolution of him feeling that or knowing that he loves Mary Jane,
right? And
that's why he wants to get married. So when you don't put that resolution in here and you put in this new bullshit of art with new dialogue that you're storing, it totally, like I said, takes the original story completely out of context, rapes the story. Okay, I'm sorry I'm using some strong language here, but that's pretty much what it is. He's taking all these originals, and I'm really glad that he
spin on it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that they actually credited the actual people because now we all know whose faces he's spitting in.
You know, the thing too is like, I'm not sure I agree with you on this, but it does do this. It does do this. It takes the story that another creator did and kind of, it does recast it in a new light and changes the tone and the theme of the story. So, you know, while Joe Quesada has told people time and time again that they shouldn't be upset about One More Day, because what happens in One More Day doesn't affect any of the stories that went on before. Okay, he is essentially going in.
But it kind of does, because this story,
he went in and changed. The Amazing Spider-Man.
He literally changed the annual.
Well, he changed the ending of it. He changed the events of it.
Well, he did.
But more than that, he not only changes the events, but he does change the personal arc of Peter Parker within that. Because in the original annual, Peter Parker struggled with the idea of marrying Mary Jane, because he always loved Gwen Stacy. And it wasn't so much that, it wasn't a case of that Peter Parker always loved Gwen Stacy and couldn't marry Mary Jane. It's that readers always thought that Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy should always be together, and they couldn't accept the fact of Peter Parker being with anyone else. So you have to put that in there so that when readers see that Peter Parker is struggling with it, they don't hold it against him.
Right.
Fine. So at the end of the Amazing Spider-Man annual, where he finally marries Mary Jane, he gets to that point where he's, you know what? I need to let go. I need to move on. I need to marry Mary Jane, or I should marry Mary Jane. Here, it's like being cast as a mistake.
Yeah. It's like he's just looking at this whole marriage thing as a mistake. And Harry Osborn's coming out as a complete prick. So, I don't think you should get married, man. You shouldn't get married to her. That chick's going to leave you. She's going to cheat on you. Yeah. It's like, all right, and now the whole reason why they didn't get married, at least from the first issue, from what we get. Now, if Joe Quesada did something clever, if he would have written something and he had an idea of why they didn't get married, and no one could really argue with it, and he did something different, I would give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe. But the reason why Peter Parker does not get to the church on time is because he's chasing this criminal who Mephisto let out at the beginning, which is the whole different timeline that this is creating. Chasing this guy on rooftops. Guy jumps. He's not going to make it to the next rooftop. Spider-Man catches him, and then as they're falling, he tries to spin a web, doesn't catch on. Whoop, bad luck. And so Spider-Man turns around, so he cushions the guy's fall.
Right.
And they go on and tell you that this character is obese, but he doesn't look obese. But they made it a point calling him fat like 3 times. So when he lands on Peter Parker, he knocks him unconscious. He knocks him unconscious for hours on end. Hours on end, so he doesn't make it to the church on time. It's fucking Spider-Man, alright? And now I'm going to sound like a nerd, but it's fucking Spider-Man. This guy got punched in the face numerous times by the Hulk. He's gotten beaten up by the Juggernaut. He's gotten beaten up by how many, cosmic beings while he's Peter Parker. And you're telling me that a fat guy landing on him is going to knock him unconscious? Are you fucking kidding me? This right here, this is Joe Quesada laughing in every Spidey fan's face. Like, that's why he didn't get married, you stupid fucks. I'm going to give you the lamest excuse possible because this is what I think of you. This is what he thinks of Spider-Man fans. Now, then what happens is the new stuff. Like, he doesn't show up at the wedding. Mary Jane is crying. Norman Osborn... She overhears Norman Osborn saying he shouldn't marry that fucking bitch anyway. Harry Osborn. Yeah. She gets all mad at him and she leaves crying. The church. That's what happens in the first issue. So, as for the question of why didn't he just explain to Mary Jane what happened, that's going to come, and why she's still called off the wedding. Because this kind of stuff happens to Spider-Man all the time. Originally, I think that was the original story, but Spider-Man, before Shooter changed it, but that Spider-Man was not going to make it to the wedding on time because it's Spider-Man. It's Peter Parker. He's got bad luck. Something always comes up when he needs to be somewhere he can't be somewhere. Right. But the reason why he couldn't be there is so fucking ridiculous that you cannot take it seriously.
I don't know. I would have left.
Why don't you tell them that you couldn't even finish reading this
thing? I couldn't finish reading it. I couldn't. See, the problem, too, was that the changes... I mean, the Paulo Rivera work, while good, still too drastic a change between that work and the Paul. I'm sorry, and Vince Coletta's inks. Just to see Vince Coletta's inks reproduced on this glossy paper again is just like, offends my sensibilities. I'm sorry, and I'm not the only person in comics who feels that way about Vince Coletta's inks. The artwork, there's too much of a drastic change. Going from the Joe Quesada stuff in the beginning,
three
to the
artists,
annual stuff, 3 different artists. It just took me out. It took me out. If you were going to do anything,
why don't you just get fucking Paul Ryan back?
Get Paul Ryan back to do it. Why not?
This just.
It's not like he doesn't need the work.
Book is just sloppy. It's just put together so sloppy. They didn't bother recoloring it.
Yeah.
They didn't bother relettering it or retouching anything. It's just so fucking sloppy and lazy. Fucking lazy.
It's because you were taking kind of the cheap way. To me it felt like they were going a cheap way out. Why reproduce? You can get
they're
the
literally
story out and you don't even need to produce that many pages for it.
I agree.
You don't even need to produce that many pages for it. It was just difficult. It was just difficult for me to read. I couldn't get through it. I just really couldn't get through it because it was too much. It was too jarring. The transitions and even the style of writing between the annual stuff and the new stuff. It just felt different.
It's very jarring. That's a whole other reason why people maybe didn't enjoy it. Maybe. I say maybe because I've read very highly respected websites loving the shit out of this book because Joe Quesada writes a column for them every week. But yeah, it's how anyone can think that this is a good idea. Well, I know why Joe Quesada thinks it's a good idea because he fucking thinks every good idea that comes out of his head is fucking good and it needs to be told and everyone needs to know about it.
Okay, I don't think he's like that, but
I don't think he's like that either. But
this is essentially a case of he was giving the fanboys what they wanted, giving the Spider-Man fanboys what they wanted, but it could have been.
It makes it like 100 times worse, though.
I know.
After reading this, I bet you everyone who disliked this book, I should say, man, I wish he just never would have done it. Just never would have done it.